Ladies and gentlemen, 167th day of the full-scale Russian invasion, a ninth year waged by Russia against Ukraine. I'm Yuriy Buchko. On behalf of Mediacentru Ukraine, I would like to welcome all the journalists covering our fight for freedom. Here at the Media Center, today with us, we have Yuriy Buchko, Deputy Head of the Lviv Military Administration. Amongst others, Yuriy leads the uh, developments for the western border of Ukraine, which is instrumental in terms of organizing the transport of people and cargo. So I ask Yuri to give us more insight. Good day. Indeed, lately we have to focus on the western border of Ukraine. We only have the western border operational, and it is used to transport cargo, and it is used to transport the people. What have we done in the short time? In Krakivtsi, border crossing point, we have resumed the passage for the vehicles, having built a pavilion, which is an added convenience for the passenger cars, and this has helped us to boost our cargo transport potential by 40%. We've managed to reduce the queues by 40%. So this is a question for Krakivets. Now the passenger vehicles can pass it. So do we see any visible effect? The effect is 40% greater capacity for the cargo transport. We relocated the passenger vehicles to a separate lane. We've been able to increase the capacity to put through the cargo vehicles and also to added convenience for the passengers traveling with a separate lane, six posts, and people can document six vehicles at a time. We are building a terminal for the coaches. We've already built the terminal. We have the scanner in place, so the coach is arriving. People leave, go through the terminal, and board the coach on the other side. Will it be a pilot project to be replicated elsewhere? Certainly, it is a pilot project. We don't have any similar elsewhere. We're seeing the queues forming of coaches, but this is to do with the fact that Kharkivets border crossing point is closed for the coaches, but it will be operational by 24th of August, Ukrainian Independence Day. Are there any other innovations on the border that we need to be informed of? Talking about the land transport, we could discuss the railway transportation. Currently, the works are in progress at the Rava-Ruska along the narrow railway track. By Independence Day, 24th of August, we are planning to launch a trade connection with Europe, from Poland, that will reach Rava-Ruska. There will be customs clearance points, a border crossing point. It was operational at a time. It hasn't been operational for 20 years, but we brought it back. We reinstituted it. We are finalizing the narrow track, finishing the renovation of the railway station. And since the 24th, we have a train from Warsaw to Rava-Ruska. And the Ukrainian train will head from Rava-Ruska to Lviv, and people can travel thus in all the directions. What advantages will this train connection yield? Or opening this railway wing, what will it mean in practice for the passengers or bringing the traffic? We have currently a train between Kyiv and Peremysl. This is intercity train. This will help us uh, establish a similar connection to Warsaw. There are many people who are temporarily living in Europe for known reason, and there are queues with the coaches crossing the border. So that train will help lessen the load on the uh, border crossing points, and trains are the most environmentally safe and fastest land transport. I have a question about the electronic ticket, when it will be implemented, and how is it going to work out? Will people need to register ahead of time, 24 hours before travel? Are you speaking about the electronic ticket for the interregional connection? Last week, the Ministry of Transportation has announced a competition for the electronic competition. It's open for 3 weeks. Then we'll select the winner, and then, according to the tender terms and condition, a contract shall be entered into, and validators will be put on the transportation vehicles. In Lviv, we have over 1,000 such buses. It won't happen overnight. It takes time to put in a validator on a bus, so it's going to last some while. And once all the equipment is in place on all the buses, the electronic ticket will become fully operational. So are we talking about the buses solely? Because you are talking about electronic queue system at the border. This is a different matter. You may have been asking about the electronic queue, because electronic true ticket, which is one thing, and there's the electronic queue, which will be working at the border. We are now piloting a project in Ukraine, in Zakarpattia, and it is being tested out now. The next facility to be launched will be Krakivets border crossing point. Now, at all the border crossing points, we are building temporary parking lots for trucks. Uh, and this is the first step to implementing the electronic queue. A truck drives up, parks, receives a ticket, and it has its ticket. And as it leaves, it will know the time when it has to head to the border crossing. But this is planned. We are organizing the parking lots, which will then be used as the lots for the electronic queues. So, is this for trucks only, or for the pedestrian vehicles too? Now we are only dealing with the trucks, as this electronic queue will not be free. They will have to pay for it. There will be designated parking lots with a telephone, a shower, a recreational facility where people could buy some essentials, and this has to be manned. And it will have to be some state company designated by the government. It will charge a fee and will be making use of this electronic queue system. Can we take one more question before we proceed? Those who are not willing to pay, so they will not drive in. Is this so? And if, say, there are 900 trucks, how many parking spaces will you need? It will take kilometers to cover. The idea is that you can register for the electronic queue online for a certain hour, and you don't need to drive up to the border and stand there for days and nights. You can do so on approaches to Lviv and know the designated hour to drive up to the border crossing points. As for the payment, it has to come at a fee. So we are now working to develop a regulation to set the pricing. And the alternative, we are all seeking comfort, but some may not be willing to pay for entering the parking area. But having talked to the drivers, we see that in Europe there are no trucks queuing, as they have their electronic queue system, there are parking lots, and they pay. And they have to pay. We'd like to do the same. We'd like to bring an extra comfort and do away with queues at the border, because we are doing damage to the roads. So this all comes at a price. And I would like to underscore, as we are hearing, this is only an intention for Lviv. The project is now implemented and piloted in the neighboring region of Zakarpattia. And now the Oblast of Lviv is planning and doing the feasibility. We need to teach our drivers to land in a parking area. So it's not an acceptable solution to be queuing on the roads, and it's perfectly acceptable that a vehicle should not be queuing on the roads. Until now, we haven't had a parking lot to offer. So when we introduce the temporary parking lots, all the trucks will stay and keep their weight there. What about the cost of the project? Have you calculated the cost and the price that the trucks will have to pay? I can't tell you about the cost. This is done by the road vehicles. The cost isn't exorbitant. This is just a regular parking lot. It comes at a price, but this is not a major construction. But you mentioned there has to be toilet facility. Well, to build a toilet facility, you would pay 1.5 to 1,700,000 hryvnia. So one modular toilet would come at this price. As for the entry, if we take the European and Zakarpattia experience, it could be up to €8 fee. Thank you. So €8 for the entry, regardless of the length of stay. We haven't set the tariff, but if we look at Europe or Zakarpattia, this will be roughly at around this price. And you asked us, driver can wait in Lviv without going to the border. Was the parking lots, where are they to be located? Will the driver have the alternative to wait out in Lviv or go to the parking lot? When we have this electronic queue in place, when people can register from their phone and have a designated hour for the border crossing, we need to legislate it too, of course, but the first step is to be done is to have a temporary parking lot and regulate the entry. That is first Zahidne. So you're talking about the feasibility of bringing it in. Do you have a time frame when these parking lots will be built for the trucks and trailers? Will they be close to the border crossing points somewhere? Surely the parking lots are being built. This is Ravaruska. You will have seen it on your right hand side. It's about a kilometer and a half, 20 meters wide. A similar parking lot is being built in Sheheni and in Krakivet. If you've been traveling there recently, you would have seen the machinery on this side. This is the first step we're making to introduce the electronic unit. Then we'll need to have electronic screen with the number of the vehicle admitted. So are you planning for fall? We're hoping to do it by fall. And what about the queues at the border? Recently, we filmed a story about Ravaruska with kilometer-long queues, and people are complaining that there are no parking areas and people are enraged. What are queues connected with? As I started discussing this matter, I said that because of war, we only have the western port left, and all the cargo that used to travel through Odessa now is obliged to head to the western borders. And this is about millions tons of cargo. So the entire cargo transport is committed to the western border. We don't have maritime transport, we don't have aviation transport. It all has to happen through the western border, and we cannot boost the capacity in a month. We have done a lot. We can build additional lanes. We are neighbors with Poland and we are neighbors with the EU, and they have their laws in place. And for them to increase their throughput capacity by truck a day, the decision has to be made by the European Union. Some declarations and notes and documents have to be completed. So if we have capacity of 700 vehicles a day, we cannot admit more, although physically we could have a greater capacity. There is a time for inspection that is set. So this is about the red tape limitations on the other side. Do you have any recent statistics about the number of cars, the queues at the borders, like in cars, trucks? There are few queues for passenger cars. Talking about trucks and trailers, as of Friday, we had 7 to 900 vehicles and Ravaruska and 3 to 400 in Shehenia with a throughput capacity of 200. But let me reiterate, we could analyze that there are 300 cars, the throughput capacity is 200 cars, but the car would be waiting for 3 days because apart from the general queue, there are some emergency goods, there are perishable goods, there's humanitarian relief that has to be given expedited passage. There are fuel trailers, and that comprises 30 to 40%. And if we have 300 cars, and the car would have to pass in a day and a half, it doesn't really work out because there are some emergency uh, deliveries. Let me ask you about the roads, as obviously the load is greater and is going to stay that way. How do you manage to keep the roads in a fit condition? The load has indeed multiplied a score of times, and all the transport is heading to the western borders. As for the maintenance of the road, the renovations are made from the Oblast budget this year. Together with the winter maintenance, we allocated 240 million hryvnia. With the money, we can do some partial fit repair where the need is the greatest, and the remainder is for winter maintenance. And we need to have a good budget. We are used to having clean roads in winter, and it is critical that we maintain it that way, as it is about safety. And there is one road between Stambir and Yanukovych, and this leads to Nizhankovich. By August, we plan to have the base layer laid. It's finished on the Polish side, and we plan to complete it by the end of August. The Polish are building a customs border crossing point. It is intended to be completed by 2024. We're negotiating to have it built sooner, as there is a dire need in an additional border crossing point. For our side, we can complete the road and wait for the Polish to complete the construction of the border crossing point. Both on the road and the border crossing points are in construction. Nizhankovich has a railway track renovated from Peremysl to the border, and we are also doing the preparatory works to repair the railway tracks from the border to Nizhankovich to Sambir. It will be a narrow road to Harrow, and from the wide track, and from Harrow to Sambir is going to be the wide track. If there are no further questions, my last question is: how is Lviv feeling itself as the transportation hub for the entire country? Over this time, we have coped with the challenges. We are aware of the rising challenges. The south and the east are harvesting actively, and soon this harvest is going to head our way, and we are preparing to accommodate it. We are building temporary parking lots along the entire road to prevent the queues. We talked to Yuriy Buchko, Deputy Head of the Military Administration. We conclude the briefing program at the Media Center for today. Please follow our briefings and